Porsche fans, Daniel here and welcome to the JetFuelOnly channel. In this episode, I'm bringing you the first of what I hope will be a few this year. I'm calling Porsche People Spotlight Series, where we highlight important people of the Porsche community. Now, not necessarily famous people, but people who have contributed in some way or at least are highly involved. And so for this first episode, I'm bringing you Ed Sadi. You know him as Crazy Eddie on Renlist, and also that guy that sells those lightweight bucket seat bolster covers, the EdGuard, right? Plus a number of other products for your Porsche. In fact, I just did a product review and install of the EdGuard seat bolster cover for your lightweight bucket seats. Be sure to check out that video, pop out banner up here and one in the description. Ever since my first encounter with Ed, I knew he was somebody I wanted to get to know, and eventually I learned maybe the rest of the Porsche community needs to get a glimpse of who this guy is. Behind his harsh Brooklyn accent, he's actually super nice, and you can tell he would do anything to help a friend out. He's been a member of the Porsche community since 1988 when he bought his 944 Turbo S Silver Rose Edition, a beautiful car. And he was highly involved in Renlist when he did a bunch of things to that car. And since then, he's also bought 2 GT4s. I asked him if he'd be down to do an interview, and he agreed, and so we met at his buddy Tom's house, who has a beautiful garage, which is a beautiful setting for this interview. So what do you say we meet Crazy Eddie?
Okay.
Hey, Ed.
Hey, bud.
How are you?
Good, Dan.
Look at this amazing place we're in.
Yeah.
Thanks to Tom and his beautiful garage right here. What's the address again, Tom? What you guys can't see is there's a beautiful 21 911 Turbo S over there. And of course, my car and Ed's car here, this is just a dream to me that only a few months ago, I didn't even own a Porsche. And here I am just being surrounded by cool guys. Way cooler cars than the guys that drive them. Yeah, very cool. So Ed, you've been on Renlist a long time, is that right?
Yeah, actually, I started with the 944 when I wanted to do some kind of like upgrades to it. So this was back in early 2000, or mid 2000. And I just said, you know, I had to change an oil seal in the car, which is like a $2 part, but it became a monumental job to take apart the engine. So the old expression of while you're in there, I figured, hey, while I'm in there, let's see what I can do. And the list got kind of extensive and it got a little bit carried away. And so what should have been maybe a 1-year project at the most for someone doing it part-time became a 5-year project. And so I went really deep into it, and it was because of Renlist that I was able to get the knowledge I needed to actually go in there and do that stuff, because I wasn't a mechanic by any stretch of the imagination. Most I ever did was brakes and oil changes, you know, for tracking. So, but there were a lot of people on Renlist who knew stuff, and my buddy Tom was one of them and helped me out tremendously, and that's how I was able to actually get that car back together. I mean, just to give you an idea, there's 700 washers that had to go back in that car. And, you know, I started taking parts off, and I was like, I got to know where I'm putting these things back. You know, it was pretty complicated, but, you know, it was all said and done. And so I got some notoriety on Renlist when I did that, because obviously I just made the car so much more appealing from a visual perspective, you know, just looking at the car. Wow, it's like it had a lot of pop to it. So, and obviously I upgraded a lot of different things in the engine compartment. So it made it a whole car again. And I was kind of psyched about getting that, you know, done, because people were betting that that car was never going to, my nephews were teasing me, saying to me that my car was in boxes, basically.
How long was it like that?
5 years.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
And is that right? You like replated some of the nuts and bolts, is that correct?
Every single piece in that car that I had touched, which was everything in the engine bay and a lot of underneath the car, was basically all replated.
That's a lot of detail.
Yeah, took a lot. Yeah, and then actually the PCA decided that it might be a good idea to put an article together on it, because they didn't really do much on the water-cooled. Most of the stuff was always the air-cooled.
Yeah. And
so it actually became a very popular article. It was written by someone very talented who loved to throw digs at me, and so it was funny as well. It just wasn't an informative article. It was kind of funny.
Is that article available anywhere to read, or is it?
Unfortunately, you have to be a PCA member to read it. It's the June 2015 Panorama edition, and Yeah, it's in that particular piece.
Okay. So you've had that car since 80...
88. I bought it new. I bought it as an original owner. It became, you know, a tie-in with all the people that I didn't know that I did wind up knowing in the PCA. So it was great. It was sort of like an introduction, you know. And I was an avid track guy, so I used to take the car to the track, and you know, that's like being a ski bum, you know, a track junkie. It's just, those are fun things to do. And then I finally decided I was going to redo the car, fix it up, so I did. So it went from 2005, it was completed in around 2010. And, you know, I was still doing stuff to the car. And then finally, after the article was published, Porsche announced that they were going to actually make a mid-engine, you know, Cayman GT4, which to me was just, oh my God, that was just amazing. So I was all ready to buy a GTS. And when that GT4 came out, I was like, that's me. I'm sold on that. So I had to scurry, you know, all over the place to throw deposits down to try to get the car, because they were going to be very limited in supply and the demand was extremely high. And so unlike the 718 that's coming out, they're saying they're going to make it unlimited because probably they have the capacity to make it, you know, to make those cars in that number. Before they didn't. And so they didn't really know how this car was going to fare in the general public. But it fared so well that they wound up making double what they planned on making. So they made like 5,200 units of the GT4 8981. So it became a very popular car. So I had to get one. I just wanted one really bad. And honestly, I didn't have another car in the Porsche lineup that really excited me like that. That
really?
car, yeah, that's, you know, it was a light car. It was a 4-speed. I mean, I'm sorry, 6-speed. But anyway, it just turns out it's a different story. It was just a whole different element that I didn't see coming, and I didn't think they were really going to make this car. And then they put the 911 engine in it, and it was like, holy crap! It's really got some. It's got some kick to it, you know. It's a 385 horsepower engine. That the most I think they had before that was 340, you know. So anyway, I threw deposits all over the place.
All over the place?
Yeah, it was 17 deposits in 9 different states, and
I really wanted that car.
I wanted it, and I wasn't going to take no for an answer. And the dealers in California were really kind of like, you know, harping on the added dealer markup to such an extent that I just got turned off by it. And so, you know, I went elsewhere for the car, and I found a dealership in Pennsylvania. And the actual, the dealer himself, the car salesman, was awesome. A guy named Matt, and Matt Cooney, and he was just unbelievable. The guy was, I mean, if I were to buy another car, that's the kind of guy that I'd want to buy the car from. I mean, he went out of his way. But the car got delivered from Pennsylvania through Porsche Motorsports, and Fremont was awesome, and they did delivery for me. And the rest was history. So I was content. You know, I got the car, and I didn't think I was going to get it. And, you know, I left the deposits in place because, honestly, I just figured, what the hell, you know? Let's see what happens. And my nephew wanted one, and he actually wound up getting one. I got another call from a dealer in Marin and at Sonnen, and they were great. And I picked up the second one. And honestly, the reason why I picked up the second one was because the first one, I was really a novice about checking the boxes. I didn't know much about them, but it's not that I would have done something that much differently, but I couldn't get the seats in the first one.
It's tough though. I mean, those options, they can mislead you at times. I mean, I found a couple of things you're like, oh, you mean I don't get that automatically?
Right.
Yeah.
Oh no, it's a puzzle. I mean, that's the whole thing. It's figuring out that whole system and what is the ones to get and what aren't the ones to get, and what's important and what isn't. So basically, the second one was sort of like, you know, check every box, almost, not completely, but pretty close. And you know, like I wouldn't get ceramics on probably a track car if I was going to track it like more than twice a year. Twice a year probably is the limit to what I would do on a ceramic, you know, ceramic brakes, but they're amazing. I mean, I would get them every single time if I wasn't tracking the car constantly. They're amazing. And then I also checked the lightweight buckets because I couldn't get them on the first one. There was a stop order. And so that was the difference in this car. And then of course I went with some like more vibrant colors, if you will. So I went with the stitching, the yellow stitching, which honestly popped quite a bit in a black car.
Sure does.
And so I got that, and you know, and then I looked inside the interior and I said, you know, the car's so dark still, it's amazing. And so I figured, hey, you know what can I do to make the car's interior a little bit more poppy, you know, a little more bright. And so I went with the seat cushion inserts, which really dramatically changed the interior. And it just, looked great. It all tied in because I had the ceramic yellow brakes, the stitching, and so on and so forth. So, and I know it sounds crazy to buy another car because, you couldn't get the seats in it, but I wasn't the only one actually.
No, what's crazy is keeping the first one in.
Yeah, well, that's true too. But see, then I made a rational decision. Then the rationale was, here you have a car that you're going to take to the track, and taking a car that you take to the track and taking it to a concours is a very difficult task. And I know that because I did that with the 944. And I actually won a couple of concours taking that car, but it was a track car. I used it for both. And it was just so difficult to maintain the level that you need to be competitive at a concours with a car that you're taking to the track.
There should be an allowance for that.
Well, they should be.
And he tracks it.
No, they do actually, but they do it in their heart. They don't do it on the paper.
All right.
They say, oh, this guy's really driving this car. And you're right, it should be, but there isn't. I mean, there's probably some category there, but I don't think that I would fit in that one. So in essence, I got the car because I wanted the other seat. And those guys that I thought were crazy on Rentless weren't so crazy. I mean, it does make a difference. It's appealing. The seat itself is so attractive. It's amazing. But it also holds you in amazingly differently than the other seat does. So I just said, you know what? I need that car, and I got it. So, and I kept on, like you said. But then one became a dedicated track car. Ironically, it's not the one with the seats in it, but that car is a track car.
Yeah.
And the black car behind me is the Concours car. So yeah, I know, I'm crazy.
So the lightweight bucket seats are pretty awesome. I've got them in my car, but from the beginning, I had heard all these terrible things about like getting in and out of the seats and wearing them out. And then I was on eBay. There was somebody selling a set of GT3 seats for $30,000.
Yeah.
I don't know if they'll ever sell them, but
no, yeah, he's crazy.
That's nuts. But either way, anywhere between $7,000 to $15,000. I mean, that's crazy. And so I think it's something that you'd want to protect your investment in. And I started seeing like these covers. It kind of got me to you, and I was like, all right, who's this guy?
Right. Someone named Crazy. I want to spend my money with some guy named Crazy Eddie, yeah.
Yeah. So when did you decide that you needed to make covers for these seats?
Well, the car arrived in April. I had already bought the other car, the first GT4, the white one. That was in September. So the car arrived in April, so I had another car to drive. I mean, usually like when you're buying a new car, you just can't wait to drive it. But I already had a GT4, so it wasn't like I was like, having to jump in it and drive it. Let's just say around June, I decided that, there's no way that I'm going to get in and out of these seats without marring the seats. So
had you even heard about anybody messing up seats yet?
Well, what I had heard was that there was some other guy selling these covers, and I wasn't crazy about the look of them, so I said, I think something maybe better could be made. And I mean, I wasn't even sure I was going to do this. I just said, well, I got to do something because, I'm not exactly a spring chicken, and getting in and out of these cars, especially if you happen to be, a little bit portly, it's not exactly easy. And so, age factor, knees factor, back factor, weight factor, they all kind of play a role in how well are you going to get in and out of that seat without basically, driving yourself nuts and feeling like you're in a torture chamber. Because it's really not the seat itself when you're sitting in it that's uncomfortable. It's the getting in and out part that make it very difficult. Now, granted, if you're not using it as a daily driver, then I'm sure it's fine. But you're going to wear the seats. I'm telling you that right now because there's so many different avenues of screwing the seat up. The back piece is extremely vulnerable because it's very thin leather. It's not really like a bull hide leather at all by any stretch of the imagination. So that gets usually marked up within the first 3 to 4 months. And then the front part, where your foot goes in, a lot of the times people hit their heel right near where the switch is. And they're dragging their heel across that. So over time, that's obviously going to be wearing, and you're going to start to fray the thread potentially. So I just said, you know what, there's no reason for this. Let me just see if I can figure out a way to design something that would not only look stock, and that was kind of key. That was the key element, was it to look stock, like as if there wasn't even a cover there.
Yeah, I mean, we don't want plastic on our couches.
Right, you don't want, and that was the, I used to hear that all the time on the boards about, oh, grandma only puts like plastic slip covers on. These are not plastic slip covers. I mean, you can barely tell these are even on the car, which is the key element of these. So that was very important. And so there was not going to be any kind of name written across it or anything, because I just felt like I wanted it to be discreet, you know.
Okay.
The old expression, I was teased on Renlist about this. They said it sounded like a condom commercial, but it's protection without detection, you know. So in essence, that was the plan. That was the plan.
Yeah.
So I went with that. So,
but you were just making these for you, right?
Right. This was it. I mean, I was just going to make these for me, and I had some people on Renlist that were interested, and they said, "Hey, Ed, you know," because they know I'm crazy and I do stupid things. So they said, "Hey, if you make up a set of covers, we'd be interested." So I knew that in the back of my mind, but that wasn't really the whole emphasis about making these was to protect my seats, you know. So I went ahead and I went around to different shops, and honestly, it wasn't very easy. Because, you know, people just say, no, I don't want to bother with that. You know, and you're dealing with a very expensive seat, so, you know, there's a liability there. So I took the seat out of the car. I wasn't going to leave the car at a shop and just, you know, and just leave it there, because it could take weeks for them to finish, you know, designing something that they thought was right. So in essence, we worked together, and it was a great relationship, and they made a seat cover after the third or fourth rendition that I thought was definitely nailed. I mean, it was great. It was perfect. It held up. It was durable. It looks great, meaning you can't tell it's on this car. You know, the back piece was a key element because I didn't want one contiguous piece of leather laying across the seat. Sort of looked like kind of a flappy thing, and I wanted it to look like the stock seat was supposed to look. And that's about as close as we could come. We did cover up a little bit of the carbon fiber, but it's still, you can see the break there, and it still holds up. And we added an extra dimension, which was kind of cool. We actually put stitching on that rear piece so that it actually looks like a contiguous piece of stitching going from top to bottom. And it looks actually very nice. I mean, originally when they first did it, I'm like, hey, I don't want that, you know, because that's not stock.
Yeah.
But you know what? Right now, I think it looks great, and about 95% of the people go with the stitching. So it's become pretty popular.
So in the Pano article about you, like we learned a lot about how you're super particular about things and picky, and probably drive some people nuts. But
no, I drive. Anyone who works with me thinks I'm out of my mind. So, yeah.
So did you? I can imagine this process has been challenging for you.
It was.
To try to get things the way you wanted them.
It was, and in fact, you know, even in the beginning when we first got the design, I was happy with it, but I knew there's always room for improvement. And what's so key is that I'm actually able to like converse with these people on Renlist. A lot of them are friends of mine, you know, they became friends of mine if they weren't. And they gave me their input. And input is so key in designing something because, you know, you don't always get it right the first time. And so there are little enhancements that were made to the covers that made them so much better. And unfortunately, the painstaking process of learning and trial and error, well, some of the seat covers, it was not that the craftsmanship was off, but the leather was not of the quality it needed to be. And so there was a big sticking point, because these aren't high margin. I mean, people think they are, but they're not. These are not high margin items. I mean, there's a very slim margin here of fat on these covers. They're very expensive to make. The components themselves are the best you can buy. I mean, it's the factory stitching. It's close to factory leather. It is factory leather, basically. It's the same quality, if not better. Even some people have said that. They said the leather quality of these covers is actually better than the seats themselves. So in essence, that was very key. So when I started to notice that the leather was actually not holding up, when I say holding up, it wasn't making the grade from the beginning. All that labor was into that leather cover, and I'm sitting there going, well, that's a loss. That's a complete loss. So I dealt with the shop and said to them, listen, we got to do two things. We don't ever make covers that don't have the leather that we need. Because no matter how good of a craftsman you are, if the leather sucks, the cover is going to suck. That was number one. And number two was, we're going to do them in such a way that we're going to buy the finest leather we can. And that was key, because if you are working with a good product to begin with, you're going to have a good end product. If you have a shitty product to begin with, I don't care how you dress it up, it's still going to be a shit product. And so I've got like 30 or 40 covers at home that I just won't sell. And I won't sell them because I know that that'll be my legacy, and I don't want that as my legacy.
Even though you think some people would be completely happy with
Oh, they would definitely, and especially if I were to discount them and everybody, I don't want to do that. And it's tough. And you got to understand something. When you have a low margin like that and you're taking that out of commission, that's a big hit to take because you're barely making much to begin with, and then on top of that, you're taking the product that you just paid all this money to have made, and you're throwing it away basically. So, yeah, so we learned from the quality of the leather, and we learned from the actual product being made in the beginning that if the leather didn't meet the criteria, it wasn't going to be made. So we figured those two things out, and now it's been pretty smooth. I mean, and I have to tell you that the interest is amazing. I mean, I would have never expected this in 100 years. I mean, this wasn't my goal. My goal was honestly.
I mean, do you do car interiors in any way? Is that in your history?
No, I've done nothing like that. In fact, I'm retired, and actually, I wanted to stay that way. I mean, I retired years ago, and I'm very content. But I got to be honest with you. There's a draw here for me because it's car related, and I love cars, and I love guys that love cars. So I mean, I'm just one of the crazy, people that love cars, and I could talk about cars all day. So, that's how I kind of kept up with it. Otherwise, I just would have dismissed it and said, I'm not interested. But, it also helps when the product you're selling is really desired, and it's sought after, and people love it. And if you look at the reviews on Renlist, you think I paid those people to say that, but I didn't. They just really like the product, and they know that it's filling a need, and the need is necessity is the mother of invention. Basically, getting in and out of those cars is very difficult with those seats the way they are with those bolsters, and so that's why they became so popular. Wow, what a thought! Having a cover that you can't tell is on the car or on the seat rather, and it protects it. So that's
I mean, and we all love our cars, preserving them. That's a good thing. Have you looked into how much, if it's possible to even replace those parts of the seat through Porsche?
No, and in fact, my guess is, I'm just ballparking this, but they have to be about $1,200 for each. That's just for the part. So it becomes, and not only did I make these for these seats, but then a good friend of mine who since passed away, God rest his soul, Rick, he came to me. He had a GT2 RS, a 997, very expensive car, beautiful seats, but those are the GT2 folding seats. And I make covers for those as well because he came to me and said, Ed, I need, he was older. He said, I need to get in and out. I'm going to fuck the seats up. He said, is there any way I can, you can make a cover for them? And he said to him, Rick, I really don't know. I mean, I actually told him, I said, listen, I'm going to need your seat. And so Sharkworks was kind enough to take the seat out of the car for me, and I picked it up. And I took it to the shop. We worked on it for a while, and they made up a very decent cover for it, and which I was pleasantly surprised with in a very short period of time. And so that seat cover now is also available, and it's actually gained a tremendous amount of popularity because the seats themselves are getting pretty worn. They're 10 years old, some of them. So, so I made that seat cover as well, and I've also made a couple of Carrera GT seat covers as well for my friend John Moody, known as Moody on Renlist. So, and some of his friends. So, but the majority of them are all obviously 918 seats, that I make covers for.
Well, that's awesome. And now that's you've got a little bit of a store online. I'm going to hit you here, but lame. It's pretty basic.
No, it's very lame. It's extremely lame. And it's not actually...
It's because you're not in business to do this, really, right?
It's just a fun thing. It's a hobby, and it's actually trying to help my fellow, Porsche nuts. And so that's really the reason behind it.
So there's other cool stuff on there now, right?
Yeah, I mean, we make fire extinguisher covers and, the seat inserts, which are kind of cool. I mean, it kind of just livens up the interior, and it's fun, and it's honestly so reversible. All these things are reversible. So it's not like you're changing the stock car. You can sell it the way it is, without those things. You just take them off. I mean, they're easy to take off. They're just, everything's basically Velcro these days, so the seat covers come off. I make the steering column covers. If you didn't get it from Porsche, I would recommend buying those from Porsche, to be honest with you. Check that box, when you're ordering the car. But, people buy used cars all the time, and obviously someone else didn't think that was worthy. I do the door side, they're called dash end caps as well. But
fuse box covers?
You do those as well.
Okay.
Yeah, cover. Those are hard to see, but yes, I do them.
Yeah.
With a little stitching around them. It's cool. I mean, it's nice to do. I mean, but out of all those items, the most practical and the most economical and the most intelligent one is the seat cover, bolster cover, because you're going to destroy those seats eventually. I mean, it's not just you. Even if you get in the seat correctly, it's the passenger that you have to talk about. And, I have to remember that when I got this car originally, and I was letting people, go for a ride with me, I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I had to give them a whole indoctrination as to how to get in the seat. I remember picking my brother up, who's not a small guy, at the airport, and he's trying to get in, and I'm going, Bud, what are you doing? You're going to destroy my seat. Luckily, I had covers on, but I mean, he just put his ass right down on that seat bolster, and I'm like, no, that's not how you get in.
Yeah.
So, and you take your car in for service, and you don't know how they're going to get in that seat.
Well, and you never know. Somebody might have zippers on their back pockets.
No, absolutely.
Oh,
it does protect the seat, and it does allow you to have a peace of mind of just saying, and like I said, we were at my garage earlier, it's really difficult when you got two cars in the garage and you can't open that door all the way. That's really a difficult thing to get into. I mean, when you can't open that door all the way, it makes that challenge even way bigger. So that's kind of nice to have that luxury of just being able to say, okay, this time I'm just not going to get in the right way. I'm going to have to slide my ass over that bolster, and that thing's there.
And there's no handle above,
There's
nothing.
I mean, and even on the passenger side, it's worse because you know what? The steering, people say don't grab it, but it's bullshit. I mean, unless you weigh 4,000 pounds, put your hand on top of that steering wheel, put your other hand on the transom, that threshold, and then put that first leg in, and you tuck use your abs, get over that seat hump, and you're in. And and getting out is the reverse order, but it really does work. I mean, my covers look pristine, but that's because I know how to get in and out of them.
And if you screw them up, they're just covers.
They're just covers. You just flip them away and get another set. I mean, you're talking about a price tag that's so reasonable. I mean, people pay that to get their car detailed. I mean, it's just like, but there's the old expression being penny wise and pound foolish, and the old expression in that Fram commercial. I think I may have said this to you before, but you can pay me now or you can pay me later. I mean, you want to screw the seats up, and then you have seats that are screwed up forever. Put the covers on and not worry about it. They're very durable, and honestly, they just need to be cleaned up a little bit, maybe with a leather cleaner. I wouldn't put any kind of conditioner on them because honestly, they don't need them. They really don't.
Do you know if the leather already has any kind of sealant built into it?
No, but these are factory leathers that are used. They come from Europe. I can show you mine. There's a couple of marks where you can see, like it starts to get a patina. It's almost like a shiny area.
Yeah.
And you use that cleaner, it comes right off. So and it works out great.
Well, I'm glad I was looking into them and then finding out that you actually live close to me.
Yeah, it's so funny.
I called in for just to say, hey, what's up, and next thing I know, we're talking for like an hour, and
you live in the Bay Area. I said, yeah.
So what's next in the Porsche world for you? Anything?
I'll be honest with you. I was looking potentially at the RS, but it's going to be PDK. And
do you think you have the pull in the Porsche world to get an RS right now?
Because people
love you so far.
Well, I got a couple of deposits down, so I think I could probably get one. I mean, unless they're going to screw me, but I've had them for years. I mean,
wow.
Yeah, I put down a deposit for an RS back in 2016. So when I got the second one, I just said, you know what, I'm going to just anticipate they're going to make one. And we thought they were going to make one, and they never did for the 981. But they're going to probably obviously make one for the 718. And I'll be honest with you, the only thing that would make me hesitant was just the PDK. But I mean, I know it's faster, I know it's quicker, I know it's more state of the art, I know it's more racy, but shifting is kind of fun.
There's goods and bads, absolutely. Yeah. But you'll have to take this one for her to drive. You've probably driven a PDK Porsche.
No, I did with the 911, as I was telling you about, but I haven't driven a 718.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, folks, you heard it first here that review on the 718 Cayman GT4 RS. It'll be right here on this channel.
From your lips to God's ears, as they say.
Well, I hope you get that. That will be awesome.
Thank you, bud.
Yeah. Well, thank you for telling us more about your EdGuards. I think they're just freaking awesome. And not only that, I mean, yeah, you can get them elsewhere. But seriously, after talking to you, I'm so glad that I've met you, that we've got a friend here in the Bay Area that has
Well,
really
definitely hook up for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and when this COVID shit is over, I mean, you know, we used to meet up at Alice's. That
Yeah.
stuff hasn't happened in a while, so
I can't wait.
Looking forward to it. But thank you for the compliment. I appreciate it.
All right, Ed,
All
thanks
right,
for
buddy.
coming.
All right, you take care, buddy.
All right, that's Crazy Eddie. Just a glimpse into who he is, and I hope you get a chance to meet him in real life. I look forward to getting to know him better. Now, like I said, this is just person one of the Porsche People Spotlight series. I do have Tom McGinnis set up. That's right, Tom owns the garage that we did that interview in. Tom is actually a pretty special person in the Porsche community as well, and I look forward to bringing him on the channel to talk about what he's done for the community. If you have any suggestions for the Porsche People Spotlight series, please let me know by commenting below. It doesn't have to be somebody I can interview in person, it can also be on Zoom, but I would love your suggestions. All right, if you like this video, show me by hitting the like button, subscribe, and hit the bell to be notified of future videos. Thanks so much for watching the JetFuelOnly channel. See you next time.